On the night of March 19th, 1919, New Orleans was deafening. Every dance hall, club, and speakeasy was packed to the rafters. Thousands crowded into these rooms in a state of absolute dread, believing their survival depended entirely on the volume of the music. A serial killer had issued a chilling ultimatum. Every person would be spared in whose home a jazz band was in full blast. Anyone who didn't jazz it out that Tuesday night faced the axe. Those who couldn't play invited professional jazz musicians to blast music through their open windows. The fact that thousands of citizens instantly obeyed this bizarre demand shows exactly how deeply this phantom had paralyzed the population. To understand that panic, we have to look back to the previous May. Over a year and a half, someone was slipping into the quiet suburban streets of New Orleans in the dead of night. The intruder brought no weapons. He would break in, silently navigate the dark house, and search for the family's own tools, finding their hatchets and axes in order to brutally bludgeon them in their sleep. He specifically hunted Italian-American grocers. Yet after hacking his victims to death, the killer would walk right out, leaving cash and valuables completely untouched on the counters. Without any motive of theft, these brutal murders appeared purely performative, a calculated effort to spread widespread panic through the immigrant community. Then came the letter. On March 13th, 1919, local newspapers published a message allegedly written by the killer himself. It began, "Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortals of New Orleans, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible. I am a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell." The author then laid out his conditions for the following Tuesday night. Anyone playing jazz music would survive. Anyone sitting in quiet would die. Curious tone. This theatrical shift from a bloodied blade to a public ultimatum suggested a potential manipulation, one where the killer might not have been the only person holding the pen. Suspicion soon circulated that an opportunistic local musician might have drafted the letter as a morbid publicity stunt to drive up demand for sheet music and live band bookings. In the direct aftermath of the terror, local sheet music sales skyrocketed, and a newly penned song titled "The Axeman's Jazz" became an instant commercial hit. If the letter was indeed a fake, it meant the actual murderer sat back and watched a local opportunist hijack his crimes, recognizing exactly how quickly the local media could amplify a ghost story. The physical evidence of the break-ins presented a puzzle far more complex than the demon claims in the newspaper. These suburban residences were heavily secured against typical burglaries, yet the assailant was consistently bypassing locked doors and windows in pitch-black conditions, supposedly without knowing the layout of the rooms. Once inside, he had to silently search through unfamiliar sheds and kitchens to find a hatchet, moving quietly enough to avoid waking sleeping residents or triggering guard dogs. He then executed loud, violently physical attacks and vanished back into the night without a single survivor or neighbor ever clearly identifying his face or silhouette. Navigating an unknown, secured house in total darkness without making a sound requires highly specific skills or prior intimate knowledge of the properties. The extreme physical difficulty of these break-ins is exactly why the city was so quick to accept the idea of an invisible demon. The violence ended as suddenly as it began. In October 1919, the killer struck one last time, murdering a grocer named Mike Pepitone before completely disappearing. The victim timeline branches from one common denominator: suspect Joseph Momfrey. He fit the profile for targeting Italian-American grocers. Momfrey relocated to Los Angeles, but suspicion followed. He was later tracked down and shot dead by the widow of Mike Pepitone, his final victim. Whether Momfrey was actually the Axeman is heavily debated. There is a strong possibility he was merely a convenient scapegoat tied to an entirely separate localized mafia dispute, carrying the blame for the serial murders to his grave. The New Orleans police never officially closed the case, and they never confidently identified the true killer. The real perpetrator slipped away. A century later, the Axeman survives as a localized ghost story, a violent collision of real-world brutality and early pop culture manipulation, leaving us unable to tell where the flesh-and-blood killer ended and the myth began.